Check the mic and make sure it sound right. Boy.
So welcome everyone to the group chat brought to you by Overmark. It's been a while, really. I really miss doing the podcast, but as you know, life gets in the way. Exams were around, O-levels. I was overwhelmed. I'm sorry, but I'm back, all right? And I'm back today with Shannon. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with Shannon, Shannon is actually a new tutor on the Overmark team. He's actually handling more of the lower sex side of things, but I'll let him introduce himself. Shannon, on to you.
Yep, hi everyone. So I'm Shannon. I'm mainly anchoring lower sec math for Overmark now. I'm a full-time tutor and I teach mainly secondary math and science. And I graduated from NTU a few years ago.
But today, for those tuning in, we wanted to share a topic that I think many of you are interested in. And today's topic is 10 things to know before you enter JC. So I know many of you Sec 4s out there or Sec 5 who are listening, you might have finished your O-level, you're partying, or you're thinking whether to enter JC or Poly. But I think there are a few things you might want to hear out first before you decide to take the plunge and the leap of faith to JC. So today we're going to go through 10 things you must know before you enter JC. And I think I'm going to kickstart this, okay? And I'm going to bounce it off with Shannon. I do not know what's his list, okay? And we might overlap a little, but what we're sharing is from the bottom of our heart. Okay, so my very first truth that I need you to know is that there is this subject called project work, and project work is a bitch. Okay, so I say that with absolute passion, and I think all JC kids that are listening into this will completely agree. You know, it's really painful. Now, the first time when I heard of project work, right, I was like, okay, well, sounds quite fun, right? Like, don't need to study, like, don't need to do homework, right? Like, okay, well, just do project work, right? But you need to understand that this project work that you're tasked to do is graded for your A-level results, and you need to follow a very strict set of like syllabus or procedure. So it's not the project work that you usually do and then you have fun, make some PowerPoint slides and stuff. But this project work involves a lot more research, a written report, as well as an oral presentation at the end of the day. Now, while I feel that the scope of the work itself is okay, I think it's reasonable because it teaches you soft skills like presentation, working in a group and stuff. But what makes it really painful is the people you work with, because you don't get to choose your group, right? So if you work with your friends, maybe still okay, still quarrel, but you'll make up. But you need to realize when we're talking about PW here, you don't get to choose who you work with. And they're usually your classmates, right? So you see them every day. You remember, wow, that guy slacker didn't turn up for meeting yesterday. Then he turned up in class, like doing all well and stuff. You feel a bit of friction in that sense. But I mean, the truth is in life, you will meet a lot of people of different kinds, and learning to work with them is a skill. But there's no denying that this is going to be a major torture point in J1. Okay, Shannon, any memories of project work for you?
I think for me there was quite a lot of confusion because our teacher gave us suggestion, but the next meeting he shot us down. Then we were like, but this is your suggestion, so what's going on, you know? And there was a lot of confusion lah. But I'm quite thankful my teammates were quite okay, I guess. And thankfully it's just 1 year lah. It's just like the mother tongue, just get it over and done with.
Yeah, I know, but I think for myself, I mean, I got an A for PW, but for me, I think a huge part was the fact that I was able to do my oral presentation quite well, right? So I presented well. In my team, I remember only 2 of us got A, the other 3 got B. Well, they were a little bit paiseh, but because like you know, we're in the same group, you want everybody to do well, but then like the oral presentation is graded individually. Now, I know there are some of you up there that might not be the most outspoken. You don't feel that confident in front when you're speaking for a presentation, but it comes with practice. And I think that practice is good because when you grow up, eventually you'll need to do a lot of public speaking. So it's a skill set that you want to pick up early. Now, if you're listening into this, there's no escaping project work. All I can say is to be consistent and to communicate openly. So one of the worst nightmare for PW, for what I heard from my friends, is the fact that the whole group just fell apart. Then somebody tanked the whole thing. Then the whole thing just gets very ugly. I think to avoid that, it's good to set expectations, okay? You need to communicate your needs and what you demand of one another. And I think overall, this whole experience is painful, but I don't think it is like not fruitful. I mean, you learn something from it, but just take note that it's going to come straight at your face when you start your JC one. Okay, so that's number one. PW is a bitch. Okay, now Shannon, back to your first. Now back to you. What's your thing that you want to share with the students?
I think personally I was an introvert, so I kind of struggle with oral presentation as well. But I guess I can testify to that lah. Practice do help. Practicing in front of a mirror, practicing just walking around while you say out the script, things like that. You try to find your own way to make it work somehow lah. Yeah, and naturally you'll get better lah. You should get better actually with more practice. I mean practice doesn't make you perfect, but you'll definitely get better at it. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm done sharing my first item. What's your first item? I'm curious.
Okay, I think my first item is my experience is a little bit different because back then I was quite naive lah. So I was thinking that Singapore is very small. So I live in the east, but my school is like Jurong JC. So like I do 4 hours of traveling a day. That was horrendous. Please don't make the same mistake. Like follow friends. Yeah, that's the biggest mistake. Yeah, apparently there are many more like-minded people like me. Yeah, so we do 4 hours of traveling every day in year one, and we almost died lah. Yeah, so I think distance is a very important factor to consider as well, because considering that school can end quite late. Yeah, you might want to factor in distance when selecting your JCs as well.
Oh my God, I can completely relate. For those of you who have been loyal listeners of our podcast, you will know this. I stay in Yishun, but I went to Temasek JC in Bedok. So Shannon, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. And I think those that know, right, I actually like missed a lot of days of school purely because I couldn't wake up or my body couldn't take it. So I fell sick. So I think one thing to know about JC is that there are much fewer JCs than secondary schools out there, especially now a lot of them combine, right? So you have your Meridian, Temasek Meridian, and then you combine Serangoon with Anderson. Your choices are getting more limited, but it's super important to note that traveling time is time that could have been spent either revising or resting. Because if you stay so far, right, you need to wake up at 5 plus while your friend maybe have an extra hour of sleep. They wake up at 6 plus. The extra hour of sleep makes a huge difference because you'll be sleeping in lecture while they're listening, right? So you don't think that, never mind, I just travel a bit more, right? Public transport, quite fast, everything. Or you can study on your way to school. Oh, please, that will never happen, right? So really just consider that distance is a real issue, especially considering JC. So take that into account. As a rule of thumb, I think nothing more than 40 minutes. 40 minutes a lot already. I think below that is best. Okay. Now, so we're done covering two things. Okay. My second point, which is the third point we're sharing, okay, is that I want you to know that when you hit to a JC, when you pass your test or you pass your exam, right, that's the new norm, right? So right now in secondary school, you're like, yeah, papaya, everything get A, get B, right? You never really fail. In JC, right, when you get back your results, right, people are not asking who get A, who get B. The highest somebody might get is a C, right? Most people will be getting an E or a pass. Okay, or pass. E is a pass, or they fail. So there's a grade called S, which is called subpass. In fact, it's quite a popular grade in JC. So you need to lower your expectations or adjust your mentality a little because you'll be quite used to failing in JC. But I say this not as a means to discourage you, but just to give you a bit of a foreshadow. So if you really fall into that area whereby you are struggling to pass or you barely pass all your tests, don't beat yourself up too much because that's normal. But I think it's also important for you to keep up and stay afloat because in JC, the moment you lag behind, you're going to drown. And it's very difficult to swim back up again. So that's what I wanted to share, that passing is going to be the new norm. So good luck. Shannon, what about you? What's your second item that you wanted to share? The fourth item on our list.
Maybe I'll just add on lah. So when someone pass in the class, right, you will hear people screaming and celebrating lah, like literally. But I say that not to like scare you also or lower the standards. If you can, of course, push yourself to go higher, but of course set more realistic goals lah, and you slowly work your way upwards. But don't just be satisfied with a pass. Continue to challenge yourself and achieve more lah. Yeah. My fourth thing I think is the longer exam hours and longer exam hours and you have more papers. Some subjects you have like paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. Yeah. longer exam hours is can be quite a big thing because like you have math, then math papers are now like 3 hours each. Not to scare you again, but you can work your stamina. Yeah, you can work your stamina and slowly improve from there lah. But I think it's a big change. Okay, not really a big change because secondary school is 2.5, right? I think. Yeah. But still 3 hours is really very long. 3 hours of math, paper one, paper two, 3 hour each. Yeah, but of course unlikely on the same day lah. Yeah, but I think that was quite a struggle for me to adjust.
Oh my god, I suddenly have like all my flashbacks and it's scaring me. Oh my god, I totally forgot that the math paper was 3 hours. Okay, the longer exam hours definitely real. But I mean it is going to be like that lah, because imagine what you study at O level and you're going to study a lot more in depth. Like I always say like my estimate is like by 5 times. Like I think O level and A level. A level is harder by 5 times. Some people argue it's more. I think 5 is very reasonable already. So just imagine the amount of content you need to learn and it goes into the exam and how much the exam can test you. Oh man, it's really terrifying. Okay, I have very vague memories of my A level because I think it was too traumatic. Okay, regardless, that is the fourth point. Be prepared for long papers. Now to the fifth point. Okay, I want you to know that after school is going to be a lot longer in terms of your CCA hours. Now, on average, you already end school later. Okay, that's the truth, because you have longer lessons, your timetable is stretched out a lot more. In general, you end school, I think most of the time 2, 3 o'clock, right? Sometimes I know in secondary school, sometimes you're 12:30, you're out already, but in JC, very rare for that to happen. I think even having classes till 4 o'clock, sometimes it does happen as part of your normal timetable, not even remedial. If you add remedial, that's another thing. And after school, right, trust me, if you have CCA, you need to know that your CCA is going to be quite different in the sense that now you're in JC, your teachers expect you to take on a lot more responsibility. In secondary school, they'll still do things for you, admin and stuff. But in JC, it's really you do everything yourself. Especially if you're thinking of taking on a leadership position or an EXCO member, right? You're going to have to do a lot more. And this is not only talking about your CCA, because there's also other activities that you have to spend time in. For example, if you want to take part in a certain club or a certain council or house committee and stuff, there's another like large chunk of your time taken away from you. Not mentioning there's still PW, right? So we talked about how after school, actually, you won't have that much time as before. And for certain JCs that are very serious about their CCAs, so I'm referring more to the sports and my athletes, right? The training hours can get quite long and there might be multiple trainings a week, right? So my own story is that after school, I end 3+4. I hit straight to training. My training go from 5 to 8. 8 o'clock, I go eat zi cha with my teammates. I reach back home. 11 o'clock, damn tired. I shower, almost 12. I try to do work. Realize I'm too tired. Go to sleep. Morning, 5:30, I need to wake up, right? So I don't have time to do my homework. And then when I go to school, I'm freaking tired because I had training the previous day. So the cycle keeps repeating. You will never have enough sleep. I'm not too sure whether you have seen the triangle before. There's sleep, social life, and grades, right? For me, my sleep was completely insufficient because I was holding on to my social life. Actually, no, my grades went down as well. Okay, so I don't know what I was holding on to, but whatever, right? So what I'm trying to say is that CCA is going to be very tough. Okay, of course, some of you might be thinking, isn't CCA not compulsory in JC? It's not. So you don't have to have a CCA, but if you don't have a CCA, it speaks a lot about you as a person. In a sense, you will be lacking a bit of opportunity for personal development. In the sense, your resume and your portfolio might look quite weak because you have nothing to write about yourself. And in general, just your social life and making friends, right? You kind of want to feel integrated in the school and activities. So it's quite normal for somebody to take part in a CCA lah. Of course, you can choose the more slack CCA, but of course, if there's something you're passionate about, like you like your dance and what, go for it lah. You just do it and then you have fun. But you just need to be prepared that it comes with a lot more than you think. Then there in the holidays, maybe you need to organize a student leadership camp, student congress, or you want to be an OGL, right? There's a lot of commitments. So just be prepared that it's not going to be as simple as you think. After school, you won't have much time to do homework, which means you really need to dedicate yourself and be disciplined. Okay, so that's my fifth point. Shannon, anything to add on to that?
I think it's also a matter of time management. You really need to manage your time. But of course, before that, you mentally prepare yourself that you're going to have very little time. given that CCA ends very late and you will have very little time before you need to like wake up again for the next day of school. Yeah, so I think you kind of need to pace yourself. Don't leave homework to the last minute. If can, you have free time, try to clear them as fast as possible. Because JC is very fast paced. You want to be consistent. You don't want your homework to be piling up. Because JC is still somewhat a school. There are rules. Teachers may still punish you here and there. So you may want to try to keep up. But of course, the teachers punish you because they care for you. I would like to believe so. Yeah. Yeah, but I also can testify to that. So my CCA was hockey, right? So one thing good is that CCA started late, so it was evening sun, it was less hot. But the drawback is that we need to shower after that. But then same thing after CCA, we go and celebrate with a meal. And then by the time we reach home 11, do homework, wake up 5:30, that was terrible. Yeah.
Oh my god, we are the 5:30 kids. Okay, Shannon, what's your 6th point that you would like to share?
I think my 6th point is don't count on last minute study. I think it's a very popular thing in secondary school. That we always like, yeah, last few days then study can work one. I mean, secondary school it may work, but I think JC it doesn't work anymore, if not for very few. Because when I did that for a few times and it didn't work, I kind of got started like, hey, something is not wrong, something is not working. Yeah, I need to change my strategy, you know, like I'm still failing, like after 3 exams, I'm still failing. So it was nearing towards the promo study, right? The end of year for J1 lah. So I was really worried, like, will I retake kind of thing, you know? Yep. So JC is a very different ball game. I would say or liken it to a marathon. You really need to run consistently without burning out. I know it's a very difficult thing. Uh, but yeah, the keyword is consistent over here, like, and to spread your workload. You don't want to leave everything last minute, you go into panic mode, and then you compromise all the quality of your studying, your sleep, your social life, everything. Yeah. Yep.
Wow,
Yeah, we
totally relate to that. So I started off like my L1R5 was like damn good compared to my JC, right? Then when I went in my first mid-year, I was 60th percentile, which is okay. It means I'm like right there in the middle of the pack. But come promos, I think I dropped promos meaning end of J1. I think I dropped to like 30% already. So I was like, oh shit, because I'm damn into my CCA, right? So I do a lot of training outside of club training and stuff. And come next year in March, right? That means my J2 March exam, the common test, I was like 10 percentile already. Then by mid-year, I was still 10 percentile. So I was like completely the bottom of the pack. So this was a rude shock to me because I was like, hey, I quite smart, right? I like okay one eh. Then like, why this time cannot? Then I was like, wow, actually I realized that JC is really very different ball game. It's a different beast. If you think O level was difficult, wow, trust me, JC is like new level. You will still adapt, you will still survive, right? You won't die, right? Humans, we're adaptable, but just you need to have the mental grit to push through. I have friends that give up, right? Gave up in the sense that they decided to drop out or they changed to poly course. I'm not saying that that's wrong, okay? But if you want to pull through with your choice and you decide that I'm going to do this 2 years in JC, right? You need to be prepared that the consistent work of running that marathon has so much more leg room in terms of what it brings for you rather than the last minute work. Okay, so last minute work is not possible in JC because of the sheer amount of workload, right? O level, you last minute you memorize essays, you can still do well, right? But JC is not possible because the content is way too much. Yeah, so just make sure you are used to that. Okay, now on to the 7th point for this podcast. Okay, sharing by me. Okay, is that you need to get used to the new learning format, which is the lecture plus tutorial format. Okay, so this is quite different from secondary school where you're in your class, the teacher teach you in the class. In JC, what's going to happen is you're going to learn new topics in lectures. So during the lecture is one lecturer to the whole cohort that's taking that subject, right? So you can expect that you won't have time to ask questions. Of course, if you're like me, you're slipping through it, nobody's gonna explain it to you again, right? So lecture time, you really need to listen closely. If not, you're going to lag behind, right? During tutorials, that's when the teacher will go through the homework that they give you, right? So tutorial is more of like a classroom setting with just your class, and then they will start going through stuff. And then, of course, for me, it's not that I didn't want to do my homework, it's I don't have the time, right? So I did not do my homework, then I lag behind as well. So by the time come exam, you can expect you don't listen a lesson, you don't do your homework, confirm GG, right? So that was me, okay? But I think learning to adapt to the lecture and tutorial format is very important. I give you a quick tip that I think is super helpful. So in certain schools, right, they allow you to have laptop or iPad to take notes, right? If you are taking notes, right, don't take it alone because there's a lot of notes to take. I suggest you all have a Google Doc, right, with a few friends. You all take notes at the same time. So like somebody can be writing the previous slide while somebody else is writing the new slide. Then when you all go back, right, all of you all have all of each other's notes. Then I think that will be super helpful. So that's something that I wish I did back when I was in JC, but that didn't happen for me. But I thought it's an idea that is worth sharing. So you have a clique of friends you can trust, right? 4 to 5 of you, you'll just spam notes together. Which means even if today you sleep during lecture, at least you know somebody got your back. And I thought that's pretty cool. So that's for me. Shannon, how was the lecture and tutorial format for you?
I think tutorial kind of vibe well with me, like because it's a smaller class, right? So there's the attention by the teacher there, and I kind of remain more focused lah. Somehow sometimes lecture can be like some sleeping therapy, you just fall asleep. So good for students who have sleeping problems. But just a word of caution, teachers may call you out to stand up, ask you questions, things like that. So don't get shocked, cause I cannot punish for that before. So yeah, just a word of caution. If you want to do that, do it tactfully, go toilet or something. I don't know. Don't say learn from me. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Shannon, I
Yeah,
got a
but
story to share. I think this was really interesting. Okay, so what happened was that I had training the day before. I was super tired, right? So next day I went to school early. It was Wednesday. I remember it was on Wednesday. It's assembly day, which means school starts late because the first period is used by the principal or whatever nonsense to come up for their assembly. So that week was the principal talk, principal, vice principal, and whoever HOD, I don't care. They were talking. So I deliberately reached my school early. So me and my friend, we were looking around the lecture theater. We were thinking, hey, not lecture, auditorium, right? It's a big auditorium. Then we were thinking, which seat should we sit at? And we decided to sit at the very last row because right behind our head, right, there's the padding, there's the cushion, right? So when we sleep there, right, we can lean our head on the cushion. And you know what was so smart about it? We chose that one in the right in the middle. So we were one of the earliest to reach. We chose our seat. Everybody started to come in. Then, of course, explain, right? The principal starts talking and it's a lullaby, and then you fall asleep, right? So both me and my friends fall asleep. Okay. Then the whole thing was over. We had a good sleep. Then the principal was like, the whole bunch of you there, stay behind. Then we're like, whole bunch of you, like, what's going on, right? Then I was like, we weren't panicking yet, because it was a very large crowd. Then after everybody went out, right, the principal came over and then she slowly dismissed row by row until it's my row, right? So the whole last row, us, we are sitting there. Then she dismissed the people by the side. So what was left behind was exactly 4 of us. So what I didn't realize was that me and my friend, we were sleeping very soundly, but the 2 dudes right beside us were also sleeping just as soundly. So the 4 of us looked like we were just sleeping there very peacefully. So that was a moment where we were completely caught out, and I was required to sit in front of my class for assembly for the next year or something. I don't know what kind of punishment was that, but that was how I knew my principal and vice principal. By then, knowing that I was the sleeping dude. Okay, but cool story lah. But afterwards, I became good friends with the vice principal. But that's besides the point. But yes, I could completely relate to that story. Okay. Anyway, Shannon, I think it was still your turn, right? So what was your point? Or was it my turn now? I'm confused.
I think it's my turn. You were
Oh,
mentioning
it's your
about the
turn.
lecture
Yeah.
and
Sorry, I tell
tutorial,
my
right?
story
Yeah,
until I
yeah.
got carried away. Okay, your turn. Go for it.
I think be prepared to make room for the new JC notes and materials. You'll be killing much more trees compared to secondary school. If you don't organize your notes, your house will look like some deforested land, like literally papers everywhere. It's really a lot. Yeah, so you might want to spend this holiday trying to sort out stuff, and make room for the new JC stuff lah. Yeah, and as much as possible, please recycle. Don't just dump or burn. Don't contribute to global warming.
Yeah, man. I remember JC notes is really a lot because like in secondary schools, like you can summarize everything in like one textbook or something, right? But JC is like multiple booklets. I mean I didn't take bio, but I saw my bio friends, their notes is like an encyclopedia. I do not know how they do it. I think econs is just as bad. But I mean, you guys can go and experience it for yourself, lah. So for me, I really utilize my school locker to its maximum capability. So I don't have to carry shit home. But that means I couldn't do homework when I go home too. But YOLO, who cares, right? I still survived JC, by the way, guys. Okay. So down to my last point. Okay. I wanted to warn you guys that retaining is real. Okay. So I repeat, retaining is a real possibility. in secondary school, unless you really like miss half the year due to COVID or something, I think retaining is there. I mean, we know it happens, but it's not a big occurrence. It's not something that you will actively think about. But in JC, right, I think it's something you have to actively be worried about, right? So there's this thing called your promotional exams at the end of J1. If you fail most of your subject, or there's a certain criteria, like your school will let you know, and you fail to hit that, right, you will retain it, which means it's actually quite easy to retain. It's like, I won't give you an exact number, but from my group of friends, there's a significant number that I think out of the entire group, right, there's like a certain portion that retain. And it's not surprising. I don't think it's shameful or anything, because actually those that retain do damn well at A level because they got 3 years to study. And usually they are ahead of the pack because they went through the cycle once and they know how everything works. So actually, I don't know whether it's a good or bad thing, but if you're prepared to just do 2 years and you want to GTFO after, right, you need to know that retaining is real. And if you fail your promos, you still got one more chance, because they usually let you study over the holiday again, and then you take another test in late December to decide if you can promote. And it's not shocking if you retain. Like, it's not a shock to anyone if somebody retains in JC. So if you have the mentality that I can cruise through, just have fun, it's not true, really. You, as compared to O level, you have to dedicate extra amount of effort, and you have to be serious about your academics. If you think that your teacher is going to spoon feed you, trust me, they're not, right? As compared to O level, maybe you have some amazing teacher that like helps you out along the way. In JC, your teacher have multiple classes, right? They have a lot of other things to deal with. They're not going to handhold you all the way like that. A lot of times it's self-directed learning. If you need consultations, you go find your teacher, right? Then if not, you have to really stay afloat. Keep your head above the water consistently. Just because you're doing well now doesn't mean you should let up. And it's very easy for it to snowball out of control. You do not want to be caught in that stage where you are not given a choice to decide whether to promote or not. You want to have the option, right? Then whether you decide you want to retain or not, that's another thing. But I think overall, try to make it out in 2 years, right? I think that is my best advice. Shannon, anything on that?
I think similar to Sec 3 and Sec 4, J1 comprises most of the topics covered in A level. So I think that's where your main game is actually at. So try your best to keep up and be consistent, because that's the bulk of your content lah. And I think it's important to set the foundation right and have good foundation, because I almost didn't make it. So the thought of voluntarily retaining came to mind, because I felt I wasn't good enough and I was very uncertain about my A level grades lah. So I had that dilemma back there. Should I like retain because I'm not good enough? What if I like so cui for A levels, cannot go to any uni, how, So thoughts like that came to my mind. So I think don't just aim for a pass, aim a little bit higher if you can. That's my advice for you, because you want to have some space, some buffer in case you didn't make it. And it's always good to aim a little bit higher lah. You don't want to aim 50 and then let's say you lose a few marks, then you get 49, 48, then you just beat yourself up over it, that kind. Yeah, we want to avoid that situation.
Awesome. Shannon, what's your last point then? We're down to point number 10.
I think my last point is that burnout and fatigue do happen. I think most of us that went through JC can testify to that. I think it's how we manage and how we recover. Try to find some management strategies, like is it through food, through playing sports, exercising, reading a book. There are many ways. It's all different for all of us. Playing musical instruments, how we express and release stress. Trying to find that avenue, so when stress input comes in, you also have an output that releases stress lah. Yeah, I think that helps to so-called manage the fatigue level a little bit more better. Yeah.
Well, completely agree. I actually experienced real burnt out during my JC. What happened was that I was overwhelmed with too much like external activities, and my academics weren't doing well, and also a lot of other stuff lah. But overall, like I completely burnt out. I just like pawned school, and then I just went to like watch a movie. I remember it was Our Boys to Men. I watched it alone for some reason, but it's very real lah. Basically, burnout is something you have to be prepared for. I know these days we talk about a lot about mental health and stuff, it's important. Of course, I don't want to go too deep into the topic, but taking care of yourself is a priority. You have to understand that when you're young, right, you can do anything, right? You feel like you are infinite, right? But even then, you need to appreciate yourself, and you need to appreciate giving yourself ample rest. But that's not to the point of procrastination, but you need to learn to take care of yourself well, not only in JC, but even in the future. I think that's something we are all advocating for. Okay, so to sum up, right, today we mentioned 10 things you need to know before you enter JC. Number one, project work is a bitch. Number two, be careful of your distance to JC. Number three, passing grade, the norm is passing grade, right? You might fail and it's quite normal. Number three, okay, number four, expect the exam hours to be a lot longer. Math papers, almost 3 hours. You also need to expect that there will be longer CCA hours after school, reaching back home at 11 or even 12. Don't count on last minute work, okay, because that doesn't work anymore. Know that the new format is a lecture plus tutorial format, and you get a lot of notes, and be prepared that your whole room will be a mess. Lastly, just be careful. Don't fall into the gray area where you might retain, and also learn to manage your burnout and fatigue. I hope by sharing all of this today, you at least have a better idea of how JC is like. This is not meant to scare you, okay? A lot of people have went through JC and they survived. We both did too. We're just trying to highlight to you what are certain areas to look out for in case you don't see them and you don't expect them coming. But that being said, if you are thinking of going to JC, go for it, okay? You just need to double down on your determination to make sure you have the grit to pull through. It's possible. It's not that tough, but I mean, it's tough, but you are tougher than that. I think that's what's most important. Okay, Shannon, any last shout out to our students?
Yeah, we are not here to scare you, but I think the point that we want to bring across is that there's more after that, like after the A levels, there's so much room for growth, and your mental capacity will stretch exponentially after you conquer this. So I would say go for it, give it your best shot if you feel that this is the way for you, Yeah.
Tough times don't last, tough people do. Yeah. What doesn't kill you make you stronger, guys. Okay. And with that, we come to the end of today's podcast. If you are listening this on Spotify, please follow us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave us a like and a comment. We'll greatly appreciate that. And we hope to see you soon in the next podcast. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
It sound right, boy.